So it was a win-win-win-win-win across the board. And since we started it, we collected over 22 million crayons and set a Guinness World Record. And we're in all 50 states, 10 countries. And really, it's like anyone can get involved. They just go to the website, download a sign, slap it on a box, and start your collection. It's that simple. I was really fascinated with human behavior. I had taken some really cool classes in UCLA about anthropology, and one of our projects was to go and analyze people eating breakfast. And I remember just sitting there and observing people eating muffins, and I noticed that the men used to take the muffin to their lips and take a bite out of the top, while the women used to take a piece off the top and put it in their mouth. And I did my paper on this, and it seems like a sort of benign thing, right? But as I went through life after that experiment, I started to see things a little differently. I started to learn how to be an observer. And as I was present moments in like restaurants and watching with my kid getting free crayons and then seeing them go in the trash, like it just started to occur to me that like, this is not really sustainable. This is not really good for the planet. There's so many kids who need those crayons. So I started my first organization called Crayon Collection simply through observing these habits of waste. And that's where the organization evolved into, because I saw a lot of those type of behaviors. I said, but it's all a habit of waste.
Yeah, I think that the crayon one is fascinating because when you told me about this, I know I felt that firsthand. With little kids going to different places and they always give you those crayons and then you end up throwing them away. Or in our case, sometimes you have a bin at home, right? And it's just, we're never going to use all these.
Right.
And what was some of the stats you were sharing in terms of some of the numbers? I think it's pretty impactful what you've already done.
Yeah, after I started seeing just my own collection grow and become, over 100 crayons within like a few weeks, it was probably 2 months and I had that many crayons. We were going out to eat quite a bit. I started to just dig in and I found out that restaurants in America throw away over 150 million crayons. Now, these are made of paraffin wax, which is essentially plastic. They don't decompose, and they're just like showing our children and our society how to be a throwaway society. And the bottom line is like, they don't belong in the trash. They have so much life left in them, and many times they're brand new. So as I decided to do something about it, I found a solution where I would ask restaurants to donate the crayons locally to schools that are considered Title I or Head Start centers. These are schools that really support the most underserved communities and have a very, very, very large vulnerable population. So those restaurant crayons ended up becoming art resources, and we supplemented with art education curriculum that those schools no longer had anyway. So it was a win-win-win-win-win across the board. And since we started it, we collected over 22 million crayons and set a Guinness World Record. And we're in all 50 states, 10 countries. And really, it's like anyone can get involved. They just go to the website, download a sign, slap it on a box, and start your collection. It's that simple. It doesn't only have to be in restaurants, by the way. At the end of the school year, we have so many kids creating their own crayon collection boxes in more well-served schools. And then in August, it's National Crayon Collection Month so that we could prepare schools for the school year for back to school.
Oh, that's wonderful. How long ago did you start that organization? How many years ago?
So that's been about 10 years old now, and it was when my now 16-year-old daughter was a 3-year-old, and we just kept going to these restaurants, and she liked the food there, and I was a nervous mom and would just keep taking her to the restaurant because I knew she'd eat. And every time it was at home, she just would refuse to eat. And now I look back on it, I'm like, I had nothing to worry about. But that's where Crayon Collection was born.
I mean, just like you said, just observing. When I started actually Offer Up, it was the same thing, where I just started to unpack these things that I look at my neighbors and I'd realize they're not parking in their garages. And so that led me to dig a little deeper and realize that a quarter of the U.S. population can't park in their garage because they have that much stuff. And then I started realizing like our homes are actually getting bigger, but we're actually having less kids. So my aha was similar to the crayon story, was just that value was stuck, right? Value was stuck all around us. And I just felt like if we could remove friction, maybe we can unlock some of that value.
Exactly. So after I did the first plastic straw ban, I realized if I worked within the city of Malibu, that would be a smaller city that I could kind of get my wish made, which would be the first plastic straw ban in the world, versus a larger city like Los Angeles, even though I live in this greater LA city. And that would have been like, I think the first place someone might go to. But I knew like my cousins in Italy, everybody's kind of infatuated with this Malibu vibe. And so if Malibu did it, then the world would hear about it. And actually that's exactly what happened. So the council members were super on board. They're surfers, they're in the water, they know what the problem is. Unanimously voted for this plastic straw ban to come out. And then after that, it was a ripple effect, and we kept seeing like city after city, country after country implement the same thing. And even to this day, the ordinance that we drafted in the city of Malibu is like the gold standard. But after that, everyone kept telling me, oh my God, I'm so frustrated with ordering in. Every time I order in, I get all this plastic cutlery that I never even asked for. And so I started to study these food delivery apps, and I kept thinking, well, we can't expect the millions of people who use these apps to put in a note and say, well, I don't want any more plastic cutlery. These restaurants are moving too fast, too quick to try to get all these orders done. And it's just a very simple thing that I did to create a new change, which was to change the toggle so that users only receive plastic cutlery upon request. And we did that by sending 14,000 emails in to Uber Eats, Postmates, Grubhub, and DoorDash. And one by one, they all participated. And it was through this email platform that we use where we were able to get individuals to participate in this request for change. Since we were able to launch that, it became a state law in the state of California. It became a law in Washington State, New York City. We've saved over 1 billion packs of plastic cutlery from entering the waste stream. And that's a 600% behavior shift through this toggle being just, again, opt-in versus opt-out. It's saved millions of dollars for restaurants. So it just makes me happy to find solutions that are win-wins, like we did with the crayons, that, show people that just being sustainable doesn't always have to be about things that you're sacrificing. We're all benefiting in this regard. People like to eat with silverware at home anyway. It's just more desirable. And that was a study done by some psychologists that showed that the heavier the utensil is, people are happier, and the restaurants save money, and the planet benefits. So
Yeah,
that was
so
cut
win all
out
around.
cutlery. Yeah, that was
I,
cut out
I, I,
cutlery.
lo- I love I love it by having the default just off. It's such a simple thing, and I think sometimes when you talk to individuals about sustainability, sometimes there's this hesitancy of, oh, it's too expensive or it's too much of an inconvenience. And I think this, like you said, this was just a no-brainer. And how many times do you get the cheap plastic forks that end up breaking anyhow?
Yeah,
Maybe it's
exactly. And everyone's got that junk drawer. They feel guilty about it. They don't want to throw it away. They don't know what to do with it. So let's just stop it at the tap. Let's just stop producing it. And so 40 billion pieces of plastic cutlery are produced per year with the sole intention of being used once and thrown away. So why not shift that number?